Heavenly Father, divine source of all creation, we open our hearts and minds to your wisdom today. Help us to see your presence not in grand miracles alone, but in the quiet moments of our daily lives, in the smile of a stranger, the warmth of the sun, and the whisper of our intuition. Let your voice guide us toward love, peace, and purpose. Amen. My friends, so many of us spend our lives waiting for a sign from God. We look for burning bushes, booming voices, or moments of divine revelation, forgetting that God rarely shouts. He whispers. He speaks through the ordinary, through the challenges you face, the people you meet, the coincidences that seem too perfect to ignore. Life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. Every experience, every delay, every heartbreak, every victory carries a message from the divine. But the real question is, are you listening? Are you paying attention? Today I want to share 4 ways God speaks to us through everyday life. There's a quiet voice within you that never shouts, never argues, never competes for attention, and yet it is the wisest voice you will ever hear. It doesn't come from your mind, it doesn't come from your fears, and it certainly doesn't come from the noise of the world. It comes from something much deeper, your connection to the divine. That voice is your intuition. It is the whisper of God inside you. You see, we are all spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. We're not separate from God, we are expressions of that same divine energy. When you understand that truth, you begin to realize that God doesn't need to speak to you from a cloud in the sky or a voice in the heavens. He speaks through your own inner knowing. He speaks through your gut feelings, your instincts, those subtle nudges that come out of nowhere, and yet they feel so right. Have you ever had that feeling? That gentle pull to call someone, only to find they desperately needed to hear your voice? Or that quiet sense that something wasn't right, and later you discovered that following that feeling saved you from pain or regret? That isn't coincidence. That's divine communication. Intuition is God's way of guiding you without needing words. It's a compass of the soul, always pointing you toward peace, growth, and love. But here's the thing. Intuition doesn't compete for your attention. It waits for your stillness. It waits for you to listen. In our world today, we've become addicted to noise, external opinions, endless scrolling, constant distraction. We've trained ourselves to look outside for answers from experts, from friends, from social media, from the next how-to video. But the truth is, the greatest teacher you will ever have lives inside you. The answers you're searching for are already within. Dr. Dyer used to say, there's a voice in the universe urging us to remember our purpose. That voice isn't loud, but it's constant. It shows up as an inner peace when you're aligned with truth, and as discomfort when you stray from it. You know that feeling of unease, that tension that rises when you stir about to make a choice that doesn't just feel right, even though it looks good on paper, that sips your intuition saying this isn't sipped your path? And when you feel a sudden calm about something that seems uncertain, that sips your intuition saying, trust this, this is the way. The challenge, my friends, isn't that God has stopped speaking. It's that we have stopped listening. We doubt ourselves. We say, it's just my imagination, or I sit overthinking. But think about this. Your imagination is the playground of the divine. Every inspired thought, every spark of creativity, every whisper that says, what if you tried this? That's God moving through you. When you follow your intuition, you are aligning yourself with the energy of creation itself. You are saying, I trust the wisdom that created me. And that sets a powerful declaration. There's a beautiful story I once heard about a woman who had a feeling one morning to take a different route to work. There was no logical reason it would make her late, but the nudge was strong. So she listened. Later, she found out there had been a serious accident on her usual route, right around the time she would have been there. That's intuition. That's divine protection. Now, it's important to understand intuition doesn't always lead to comfort. Sometimes it leads you to change. Sometimes it asks you to step away from something familiar or safe. God doesn't speak to keep you small, He speaks to help you grow. So when your intuition nudges you to let go of a relationship, a job, a habit, it's not punishment, it's preparation. Something greater is waiting, and your soul knows it before your mind does. This is why listening to intuition requires trust. Trust that even when things don't make sense, there's a higher intelligence guiding your path. Trust that peace, not logic, is your best indicator of truth. Dr. Dyer often said, if prayer is you talking to God, intuition is God talking to you. That means every time you feel that inner whisper, you are in conversation with the divine. You don't need a middleman, you don't need to beg or plead, you simply need to listen and follow. So how do we strengthen this connection? We begin by quieting the noise. Spend time each day in silence, not asking, not demanding, just being. When you sit in stillness, you begin to hear the subtle guidance that's always been there. Meditation, prayer, walking in nature, these open the channel between you and your source. Another way to recognize God's voice within is by its tone. Divine guidance never comes with fear, urgency, or anxiety. That's the voice of ego. God's voice is calm, it's peaceful, it doesn't push, it invites, it doesn't threaten, it reassures, it feels like love. You'll know it because when you follow it, life flows. Synchronicities appear. Doors open effortlessly. You meet the right people at the right time. That's not magic, that's alignment. You're moving with the current of the universe instead of against it. And when you ignore it, you'll feel the opposite. Resistance, confusion, struggle. That's not God punishing you, it's just a sign that you've stepped out of harmony. So don't judge yourself for missing a message, just pause, realign, and listen again. God's guidance never runs out. It's patient, it waits for you to come home to yourself. Every time you honor your intuition, you strengthen your connection to Source. You build trust. You begin to live not from fear, but from flow. You start recognizing that you are never alone, that divine intelligence is always speaking through your heart, your feelings, your inner knowing. And when you reach that space, life becomes a dialogue, not between you and the world, but between you and God. Every choice, every encounter, every moment becomes sacred. So the next time you feel that quiet whisper saying, turn here or reach out or let it go, don't dismiss it. That's not coincidence. That's not luck. That's God, speaking directly to you, guiding you toward your highest path. Listen and trust. Because when you do, you'll find that the entire universe begins to speak in harmony with your soul. Sometimes God doesn't come to us in quiet whispers or inner nudges. Sometimes He comes wrapped in the faces and experiences of everyday life, in the people we meet, the challenges we face, and the coincidences that seem too perfect to be random. Every single person who crosses your path is a messenger. Some come to love you, some to teach you, some to challenge you, and others to awaken you. But all of them, whether they bring joy or discomfort, are part of a divine choreography designed just for you. See, the universe is never random. Every encounter has meaning. Every event, no matter how ordinary or painful, is infused with divine intelligence. There are no accidents in a universe created by a loving source. Dr. Dyer often said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's especially true when you start to view your relationships and circumstances as divine communication rather than coincidence. Think for a moment about the people who have shaped your life. Perhaps someone encouraged you when you were ready to give up. Maybe a teacher, a friend, or even a stranger spoke words you still remember years later. Those moments didn't happen by chance. They were arranged by something far greater, by God, moving through others to remind you of your worth, your strength, and your direction. But it's not only through kindness that God speaks. Sometimes He sends you a difficult person or a painful experience to stretch your capacity for love, patience, and understanding. We like to call these people tests, but in truth, they are gifts. They reveal where we still hold anger, where we still need to forgive, where we still cling to ego. Think about it. How would you ever learn compassion if no one ever hurt you? How would you ever develop forgiveness if no one ever wronged you? The divine uses contrast, both light and shadow, to shape your soul into something more beautiful and awake. I remember once hearing someone say that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. The reason might be a single moment of grace, a smile, a helping hand, a word of encouragement. The season might be a friendship or a love that teaches you something essential, even if it doesn't last. And the lifetime relationships, those are the ones that continue to deepen your connection to the divine through shared growth, support, and love. When someone leaves your life, it's easy to feel abandoned or betrayed. But what if you looked at it differently? What if you could see that person's exit as part of your soul's curriculum, a divine plan designed to move you toward your next chapter? God sometimes closes doors, not to punish you, but to guide you. A closed door is not rejection, it's redirection. Even challenges that seem meaningless or unfair often carry hidden blessings. Maybe you've lost a job only to find your true calling months later. Maybe an illness taught you gratitude for life. Maybe heartbreak cracked your heart open just enough for love to enter in a deeper way. God speaks through every one of these moments. It's just as though the universe is saying, trust me, there's more happening than you can see. Dr. Dyer once said, there is no such thing as a coincidence. What you call coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. Think about that. Those moments when the right book falls into your hands, when you overhear exactly what you needed to hear, when a stranger gives you unexpected kindness, that's not random, that's divine alignment. God uses everything and everyone as his messenger. But we must learn to listen beyond appearances. The person who irritates you at work might be teaching you patience. The person who criticizes you could be reflecting a fear you've been avoiding. The person who loves you unconditionally is reminding you how God loves you, not because you are perfect, but because you are divine. When you begin to see life through that lens, something miraculous happens. You stop taking things personally. You stop seeing people as enemies or obstacles. You start to see them as mirrors, each one reflecting something about yourself that God wants you to notice. If you are surrounded by anger, maybe God is asking you to find peace within yourself. If you constantly meet people who don't value you, perhaps God is whispering, it sets time to value yourself. If you are faced with loss, maybe he sets saying, make room for something greater. Life is a classroom, and every person is a teacher. The lessons might not always be easy, but they are always loving in their intent. God doesn't punish, he educates. Every circumstance is a curriculum designed to help your soul remember what it already knows, that you are loved, that you are connected, that you are never alone. To truly hear God through your experiences, you must stay open. Don't rush to label something as good or bad. Instead, pause and ask, what is this trying to show me? What is the gift in this? The answer might not come immediately, but if you stay present, it will reveal itself in time. You can also begin to practice gratitude, even for the difficult moments. Gratitude shifts your energy from resistance to acceptance. When you thank God for the lessons before you understand them, you invite clarity and healing. You begin to see that everything, even your pain, is part of a divine unfolding. And don't forget, God also speaks through beauty, through laughter, through joy. The friend who makes you smile, the child who reminds you to play, the sunset that leaves you speechless. These are also divine messengers. Every expression of love, every moment of awe, every breath of peace is God saying, I am here. So as you move through your day, pay attention. Look at the faces around you, not as random passers-by, but as reflections of the divine. Listen to the words that come your way. Watch the patterns in your life. Nothing is meaningless. Every experience carries a sacred message if you're willing to see it. When you start living this way, awake, aware, grateful, you realize that God isn't somewhere distant, speaking only in sacred spaces or holy texts. He's in your daily life, in conversations, in traffic, in laughter, in tears. He's in the stranger who holds the door open, and in the challenge that forces you to grow. The entire universe is God speaking to you. Every day, every moment, every encounter is His way of saying, pay attention, I am guiding you home. And when you begin to truly listen, you discover something profound. Life has been whispering divine truth to you all along. You were never lost. You were never forgotten. You were always exactly where you were meant to be, guided by the gentle hand of a loving source that never stops speaking and never stops loving you. When you step outside early in the morning and feel the soft air touch your skin, when you watch the golden light of dawn stretch across the horizon, or when you listen to the rhythm of ocean waves or the gentle rustle of leaves, you are witnessing God in His purest form. Nature is not separate from the divine, it is the divine expressing itself in colors, sounds, and silence. Every sunrise is God saying, begin again. Every sunset whispers, rest, my child. So many of us go through life feeling disconnected, rushing from one task to another, living in the noise of our thoughts, our devices, our schedules, yet the entire time God is waiting for us in the stillness. He doesn't hide in cathedrals or temples alone. He reveals himself in the quiet beauty of creation. The problem is not that God has stopped speaking, it's that we have stopped noticing. If you truly wish to hear God, you must learn the language of silence. That doesn't mean the absence of sound, it means the quieting of the mind. When your mind is busy, cluttered with fears, regrets, and endless to-do lists, it's like static blocking a clear signal. But when you become still, even for a moment, you tune yourself to the frequency of the divine. Dr. Wayne Dyer often said, "The quieter you become, the more you are able to hear." And that is one of the great spiritual truths of life. God doesn't compete with your noise. He waits patiently until you are ready to be still enough to listen. Think about how nature operates. The trees don't rush to grow. The rivers don't strain to flow. The sun doesn't try to shine. They simply are, in perfect alignment with the source that created them. You too are part of that same divine design. When you allow yourself to be still, you return to that natural state of harmony. You become one with the rhythm of the universe, peaceful, trusting, and aware. Imagine sitting quietly by a lake. At first, the surface might seem disturbed by ripples, but if you wait long enough without stirring the water, it begins to settle. Soon it becomes clear enough to reflect the sky. That lake is your mind. The ripples are your thoughts. Only when you stop agitating them can you reflect the face of God. This is why stillness is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is the sacred space where God's voice becomes unmistakably clear. In the silence, you begin to feel guidance rather than hear it, a knowing that comes from the soul rather than the intellect. You start to sense that you are not separate from creation, but an inseparable part of it. The wind that brushes your face, the song of a bird, the fragrance of rain, all of these are forms of divine communication. They remind you that the same intelligence that makes the planet spin and the flowers bloom is beating within your own heart. When you realize this, you stop feeling lonely. You stop feeling small. You remember that you are one with everything, one with God. Take a moment and think of how peaceful you feel when you walk in nature. Maybe it's a quiet park, a mountain trail, or just standing barefoot on the grass. That peace you feel isn't coming from the scenery, it's coming from within you. Nature doesn't give you peace, it reminds you of the peace that's already there. This is why so many of the world's greatest teachers retreated to nature to commune with the divine. Jesus went into the wilderness, Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree, even Dr. Dyer himself would walk along the ocean in Maui, letting the sound of the waves quiet his mind so he could hear what the universe wanted him to know. Stillness is not something you create, it's something you uncover. Beneath the chaos of your thoughts, beneath the chatter of the mind, there is a vast and silent awareness that is always present. That is where God speaks. You don't have to go anywhere to find it. You simply need to pause and listen. In this sacred silence, you will hear not words, but understanding. You'll begin to see that the answers you've been searching for were never lost. You'll feel that gentle reassurance that says everything is unfolding exactly as it should. You'll know without needing proof that you are guided, loved, and supported. When you cultivate stillness, your perception begins to change. Suddenly, what once seemed ordinary becomes miraculous. The way sunlight filters through a window, the sound of rain tapping on the roof, the way a child laughs, all become holy. You begin to experience life not as a series of random events, but as a sacred conversation with God. And the more time you spend in stillness, the more clearly you can discern His voice from the noise of fear. God's voice is never frantic, it never rushes, it comes with gentleness, calm, and certainty. When you feel peace, that's the divine. When you feel tension or panic, that's the ego. It's as simple as that. Stillness also heals. So often, we look for healing through doing, through fixing, controlling, or striving. But true healing happens when we surrender, when we stop trying to make life bend to our will and instead allow life to move through us. In stillness, we stop resisting. We stop pushing against what is, and that's when transformation begins. You don't have to meditate for hours to touch this peace. Even a few moments of deep conscious breathing can bring you back to your center. Sit quietly, feel your breath moving in and out, notice your heartbeat, let your thoughts come and go without judgment. And as you sit in that space of awareness, remind yourself, this is where God lives. When you reconnect with stillness, your outer life begins to mirror your inner calm. Situations that once triggered anxiety lose their power. You respond rather than react. You begin to trust the natural flow of events. You stop fighting life and start dancing with it. And nature, oh how she reflects this truth back to us every day. Watch the seasons. The tree doesn't grieve when its leaves fall, it knows spring will come again. The river doesn't cling to its shape, it flows freely, trusting it will always reach the ocean. Nature teaches us surrender, patience, and faith, the same qualities needed to hear God's voice clearly. So the next time you feel lost or disconnected, step outside, look up at the sky, feel the air on your skin, breathe deeply. The entire universe is alive with divine intelligence, and it is speaking to you in every breeze, in every bird song, in every moment of silence between your thoughts. Be still. Listen. Because in that stillness, you'll realize something profound. You were never separate from God. You were simply too busy to notice that He's been with you all along, breathing through you, living through you, loving through you. And when you finally hear that voice, not with your ears, but with your soul, you still understand what Dr. Dyer meant when he said, when you are in alignment with the source of all creation, you become an instrument of peace. You live in harmony with the flow of life itself. There's a divine spark inside you that longs to express itself, an inner flame that never goes out no matter how many times life tries to dim it. You can feel it in your dreams, in your yearnings, and that quiet pull towards something greater than what you're living right now. That's not just ambition, that's not ego, that's God talking to you through your desires. Every dream that truly inspires you, every idea that fills you with excitement, is a message from the divine calling you toward your higher purpose. The word inspired literally means in spirit. So when you are inspired, when you feel that deep sense of enthusiasm about something, you are quite literally in alignment with spirit. You are living in harmony with the creative force that made you. So many people dismiss their dreams because they seem too big, too impractical, too far away. But here's the truth. God would never plant a dream in your heart that wasn't meant for you. The desire itself is evidence that it's possible. The fact that you can imagine it means that somewhere in the infinite field of creation, that reality already exists. Your role is not to force it into being, but to align yourself with the energy of it, to believe it, to feel it, and to act as though it were already true. When you feel that gentle tug towards something, maybe a career change, a creative pursuit, a way of serving others, that's God whispering, this is where I want to experience life through you. You are His instrument. You are how the divine gets to create, to love, to expand. Your dreams are not about egoic success. They are about divine expression. Dr. Wayne Dyer often said, don't die with your music still in you. That music, that unique calling that only you can express, is the sound of God moving through your soul. It might not look like anyone else's path. It might not make sense to others, but you weren't created to copy, you were created to create. The more you honor your dreams, the more you honor the Creator within you. Sometimes people believe that spirituality means denying their desires, as if wanting more is somehow unholy, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Your desires are not something to suppress, they are something to understand. There are ego desires which come from fear, the desire to control, to dominate, to be seen as superior, and then there are divine desires, the ones that uplift, that expand you, that inspire love and creativity. You can always tell the difference by how they make you feel. Ego desires create tension, divine desires bring peace. Ego says, I want this so I'll be enough. Spirit says, I want this because it's who I am. When your desires come from love and a wish to contribute, you can trust that they are sacred, they are God's way of expressing Himself through you. Imagine for a moment the seed of a tree. Inside that tiny seed is an entire blueprint, the shape of the tree, the height, the kind of fruit it will bear. But the seed doesn't struggle to figure out how to become a tree. It simply follows its nature. The same is true for you. Your dreams are the divine blueprint planted in your soul. You don't need to know every step. You only need to trust the unfolding. Life will give you signs. You'll meet people who open doors. You'll find opportunities that seem to appear out of nowhere. Synchronicities will begin to guide you. This is how God works. Through inspiration, through alignment, through perfect timing. But to see these signs, you must stay awake and open. You must believe that your dream isn't a fantasy, it's a calling. The universe doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your energy. When you move in the direction of your dreams with faith instead of fear, you activate forces beyond your imagination. You'll notice that what once felt difficult now flows. What once seemed far away starts moving closer. That's the divine partnership in action. And yes, sometimes the path will be uncertain. You'll face obstacles, delays, even doubt. But remember, those moments are not detours. They're part of the process. They refine your faith. They strengthen your commitment. They teach you to rely on something greater than your limited understanding. God doesn't test you to break you. He tests you to prepare you. Every challenge is an invitation to trust more deeply. When you live from this awareness, your entire life becomes an act of co-creation with the divine. You stop forcing things and start allowing. You stop chasing outcomes and start enjoying the process. You stop seeing your dream as something outside of you and start realizing that it is already unfolding within you. Dr. Dyer used to say, "You'll see it when you believe it." Most of us wait for proof before we trust, but that's not how creation works. Belief is the proof. Faith is the energy that brings the invisible into form. When you believe with your whole heart, you are aligning with the power that makes worlds. You're saying to God, "I trust your vision through me." Sometimes God speaks through desire by making you restless, not as a punishment, but as a reminder that you're meant for more. That restless feeling is your soul trying to wake you up. It's God saying it's time to grow. It's time to step forward. Don't ignore it. Don't numb it. Follow it. Maybe you've always felt called to write, to teach, to heal, to build, to create. Those are not random wishes. They are sacred instructions, and when you honor them, the whole universe begins to support you. You'll notice resources appearing, ideas flowing, people showing up at the perfect moment. That's the power of alignment. That's what happens when you say yes to what God has placed in your heart. Living your dream is not about reaching a destination, it's about embodying your divine nature. It's about becoming a vessel through which love, creativity, and purpose can flow freely into the world. Every time you act on inspiration, no matter how small, you are saying to God, "Use me," and He will. When you look back someday, you'll realize that your desires were never random. They were breadcrumbs leading you home, to yourself, to your purpose, to God. Each step, each dream, each inspired idea was part of a grand design. And when you live from that place of trust, you no longer chase life, you allow life to unfold through you. So the next time a dream visits you, that thought that excites your heart, that vision that one step lets you go, don't dismiss it. That step's not fantasy, that step's not ego, that step's God calling your name. That step's the universe saying, "I step," ready to express something beautiful through you. Listen, say yes. Take the first step, even if you can't see the whole path, because when you do, you'll discover that the path rises up to meet you. Doors open, guidance appears, and the impossible becomes inevitable. This is how God speaks, through the language of your own heart, through the pull of your dreams, through the sacred whisper that says, "You were meant for this." Follow that voice, my friend. Trust it completely, because when you do, you'll find that your desires were never about achieving something. They were about becoming someone in harmony with the source of all creation, someone who doesn't just believe in miracles, but is one. And in that realization, you'll finally understand that your dreams were never separate from God's will. They were His will, expressed through you. You are His dream, made flesh, living and breathing His infinite potential. So listen deeply. Feel fully, And never forget, every time you honor the calling within your heart, you are answering the voice of God.